Go ahead, Ms. Harper. There won't be all clear until after this. Yes, Your Honor, maybe appearances on that prosecution. Good afternoon. My name is Divya Kumar, and I'm joined by my co-counsel, Mr. Cole Jorgensen. Good afternoon. And we're also joined by our representative, especially in the morning. Good afternoon.
Introduction from the defense, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Aleyna, and I'm joined here by my co-counsel, Travis Harper. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Together we represent the slave trial.
Yes, Your Honor. Prosecution moves to vote 603, which construction squares in all of it. And with that, we'd also like to ask you about movement on level. Should we ask to approach the counsel, the jury, or the bench? Yes, Your Honor. And with that, the prosecution ready for open statements.
Yes, Your Honor. We have a bench finder that we all relevant to stop this. Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Documents all objections have been made to. At this time, I'd like to take the witness to the
No, Your Honor.
At Your Honor, the defendant's ready to go.
Open statement. Ms. Young, members of the jury, may it please the court. This was a killer who couldn't. Just a few weeks, many of us will be celebrating. Gather together with friends and family, have a hot dog or two, and watch the fireworks light up. Spirit. Just hope that this 4th of July is just hope that this 4th of July doesn't end up the way it did last year. Kill it. Couldn't. Presidential candidate Thomas Capello took the stage at a campaign rally. He approached the podium to give a rousing speech, but moments after, he was shot in the head. A shot that came flying from a rooftop several hundred yards away, a shot made by a killer who couldn't miss. This defendant with murder. And in doing so, we as the prosecution have taken on the highest burden in our case. We have to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant, Blake Crosby, killed Senator Thomas Capello. We're going to show you exactly how and why she did it. And to do so, we're going to ask people 3 questions here about this defendant. First, what does this defendant know about guns? Because you're going to hear that in this defendant's own words, no ordinary person could make it. You're going to learn that this defendant, she is no ordinary person. Because you're going to hear how she was a trained sniper in the United States Army for 8 years. You're going to hear how she attended sniper school, how she won multiple awards, how she holds the record for the longest bullseye in the United Armed Forces. Members of the jury. Where was the defendant on July 4th, 2022, and in the days leading up? You hear that this defendant couldn't miss a single one of Senator Capello's campaign events. how she attended 3 before the one on July 4th in Philadelphia, all to protest his life. You're going to learn that on July 2022, she came here to Philadelphia to protest once again. Learn that on July 4th, 2022, she traveled to the top of the Cincinnati Hotel. She pointed a rifle at the senator, and she fired that shot. You're going to see forensic evidence linking both the crime and the defendant to that location. Place diligence. But trained is killer potential. They hear this. Learn that just dislike Senator. She didn't just hate Senator Capello. She thought that Senator Capello was a threat to our national security and to every single American life. So she decided to take matters in her own hands. Learn that she tweeted threats against the senator both in the month leading up to and on the day of the assassination. Just hours before she took her shot that she couldn't miss. What, where, and why will be led to the truth. In a few moments, I'm going to take my seat. And Miss Young, she's going to come before you and she's going to insist that her findings. And who had the opportunity to commit. At the conclusion of trial of there's only one person couldn't miss. That's why I'll come before you. I'll remind you of the evidence and of the charges, and I'll ask that you find this defendant guilty of murder. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. Government had more suspects. Just weren't interested. See, when Miss Kumar gets up here and tells you that a killer couldn't miss, sounds like a pretty good story. Government knew there were other on those city rooftops in Philadelphia at the time that senator was shot. What if I told you the government knew some of those people? Wondering, well, maybe the government investigated. You're going to learn today is throughout this entire trial, throughout their entire investigation, the government focused in on one person of interest. You're going to get a chance to meet that one person they were interested in. This woman right here. Name's Link Prosecution. The veteran. Wanting to stay engaged in her service, she didn't have to become politically involved. She researched candidates, she formed opinions, she attended campaigns. And she'll be the first to tell you that on July 4th, she was at that rally for Senator. She'll be the first to tell you that she did not agree politically with that senator. Government gets up here and tells you a story about someone who couldn't miss. It's not enough for them to tell you that a civilian murdered a political candidate without bringing you evidence. It's not enough for the government to ignore suspects. Miss Crosby walked through those courtroom doors. She was presumed innocent until the government could prove otherwise. See, the burden the government has in this case, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the highest burden in our legal system. Beyond a reasonable doubt. The government can't just tell you something that could be true. They can't just tell you something that's probably true. No, they have to leave no room for a single other reasonable explanation of the events. government's people, and it never shifts yours. Won't be able to ever. I asked you to do it. The government didn't. Interested to ask questions. Throughout this trial, there are 3 questions I want you to keep. Question: did anyone else have the means to commit this crime? You see, we expect that the government's going to focus in a lot on Miss Crosby's military experience, her experience with weapons. But members of the jury, what you're going to learn today is the government wants you to believe Miss Crosby shot that senator without bringing any evidence that Miss Crosby had access to a weapon. You're going to hear that Miss Crosby was discharged from the military 6 years ago and doesn't have a sniper rifle to her name. The government won't be able to provide you with a single murder weapon, but what they will, what the evidence will show, is that there were Secret Service agents at that rally with weapons as well. So question number 2. Did anyone else have the opportunity to commit this crime? You see, you're going to learn today that there were 38 Secret Service agents present at Senator Capello's rally, some of which were on the rooftops. Members of the jury, I'm sure the government is going to bring you some evidence that tries to tie the defendant, Miss Crosby, to this case. Cigarette. But Miss Crosby is going to take it. And when she takes that stand, she'll tell you what we agree with. She smoked a cigarette on her hotel's roof on July 3rd, not the day of the rally on July 3rd. Members of the jury, the evidence will show that the only people the government could place on any rooftops on the day of that rally were the Secret Service agents. That brings us to question number 3. How many persons' interests did the government really look into? This question would be pretty easy. In fact, we expect the government's witness to answer it. First one. Throughout their entire investigation, despite having other people with similar means and opportunity, the government focused on one person alone. It's possible. Members of the jury, I'm not here standing before you trying to tell you that a Secret Service agent was a mole and tried to commit this crime. The fact of the matter is, I don't. And neither does Ms. Kumar. Because the government accused Miss Crosby of this crime when they didn't work. It's burden in this case. It's not true. They're all reasonable explanations. At the end of this trial, we'll see we didn't do it. That's why at the end of this trial, I'll come before you again and I'll ask you to find Miss Crosby not guilty. Thank you for your time.
That's you to the calls for service. Yes, Your Honor. Before we do though, pursuant to stipulation 16 and 17, we move to enter the exhibit. Specifically, exhibits 9, 16, and 17, which pursuant to stipulation 16 and 17, all objections have been.
That's our understanding, Your Honor, without.
And with that, Your Honor, we call Sasha Lee for to the stand and ask to publish the exhibits. Good afternoon. Could you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Of course. Good afternoon. My name is Divya.
What do you do?
I'm the head of protection at the U.S. Secret Service. Been in that role for 8 years.
Sir, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Secret Service. Started as a special agent. And I worked my way up to the head of protection.
Agent, how are you involved in this case?
I was assigned to coordinate the security detail on our presidential candidate, Thomas Camillo. Fortunately, Mr. Camillo was assassinated on July 4th, 2022. I also led the investigation alongside the FBI into his assassination.
Sir, question about the first part you mentioned. You said you were assigned to coordinate the security. So was it your job to act Senator Camillo?
Yes, that was our only job, to make sure that Mr. Camillo stayed safe.
And you mentioned that investigation. Did you lead the investigation on secret service side into Senator Camillo?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
As a result of that investigation, did you arrest?
Yes, we did.
Who was that?
The defendant, Miss Blake Crosby.
You identified and did by our
Yes, ma'am, she's sitting at the end of the defense table wearing a green sweater.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witness has correctly identified the defendant. What did you learn about that?
I actually learned that she served in the specifically she was experienced sniper.
You said she was experienced. What led you to believe that?
She'd been a sniper for 10 years. She actually won multiple in she won the competition for best shot for 4 years. And she actually had the record for the longest shot across all of our courses, about 1,500 yards.
Well, Agent, speaking of distance, I want to talk about where that shot was fired. Agent Divya, during the course of your investigation, did you determine where the shooter was located?
Yes, with the forensics team, they were actually able to triangulate the angle and the distance from which the bullet came from, and we were able to pinpoint 2 buildings that it possibly came from.
Sir, can you turn that fire before you take what you did in mind? Just let me know.
There.
Sir, what is that?
It's a map of the area where the rally was being held and the surrounding area.
It appeared to be a fair and accurate copy.
Yes, ma'am.
Prosecution offers exhibit.
Without objection, Your Honor.
So, sir, you mentioned that there were 2 possible locations. Are they obvious now?
Yes, ma'am.
And what are?
The Sinesta Hotel and the Hilton Hotel, both near Rittenhouse.
Through your investigation, were you able to identify which of those 2 buildings the shot was fired from?
Yes, we searched both, but we only found evidence relating to this investigation at the Sinesta Hotel.
Can you tell us what that evidence was?
Yes, ma'am. We found 2 pieces of physical evidence, a bullet and a cigarette that were both left on the top of that building.
Would you recognize those 2 pieces of evidence?
Of course.
But approaching opposing counsel with exhibits 5 and the witness with.
Thank you.
Agent, also including that bullet in exhibit 5. Can you explain what it is, where it's found?
This is the bullet that isn't the bullet that was actually used to shoot for the people, but it's the exact same caliber of the bullet. It's basically the exact same.
And where is it found?
On the rooftop, just a few feet away from the cigarette.
That bullet appeared to be the same condition as the last saw.
Yes, ma'am.
Prosecution offers exhibit 5.
No objection, Your Honor.
Let's talk about that cigarette, sir. Where was that?
Like I said, this cigarette was found a few feet away from on the rooftop of the Sinesta Hotel.
Can you describe exactly where it was found on the rooftop?
It was found on the ledge that was actually facing Rittenhouse. Again, that's where Mr. Pellet was.
Sir, did you find any forensic evidence linking that cigarette to the defendant?
We did. We had our forensics team run DNA, fingerprints, all kinds of tests. And they found Miss Crosby's DNA for fingerprints and along with gunshots that was found on this cigarette.
Sir, let's turn now finally. Agent, can you tell us who the exhibit 12 or find it?
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
What is that?
This is a tweet that Miss Crosby posted shortly before the assassination.
Sir, what the defendant said about Senator Pell?
Thomas Harper is a threat to every person in this country. As long as he is alive, none of us are safe.
That appeared to be a fair and accurate copy of the defendant's words.
Yes, ma'am.
Prosecution offers Exhibit 12. Any objection?
We have no objection.
Fifth, 2022. That was the same day she booked her flight to Philadelphia.
Speaking of that, just gonna read it in front.
There,
Do you recognize that?
I do.
What is it?
It's a list of the guests on the 25th floor of the Cincinnati Hotel. Miss Crosby's hotel room was on the 25th. She was staying at the Cincinnati.
Agent, can you point towards where the defendant's reservation is on that document?
Of course. It's actually towards the bottom. It's the last one. It's under the name Pat.
You know why the defendant used the name Pat Lane?
She admitted that she was aliens in order to check the hotel room.
Agent, when did the defendant make that hotel reservation here in Philadelphia?
The same day she tweeted, the tweet I just read to you. April 5th, 2022.
Thank you, Agent Nico. No.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Special Agent.
Good afternoon.
You mentioned just a moment ago that you're a part of the Secret Service, correct?
Hey, I've been for 21 years.
It's fair to say that the Secret Service agent is a little bit different from another law enforcement. Yes? Of course. You have to go through your own special training, correct?
Exactly. Besides general law enforcement training, we also have specialized Secret Service training, protection, and things like that.
Part of that training includes firearm training, yes?
Of course.
Sir, you'd agree with me that on July 4th, 2022, you were working as a Secret Service agent at that rally.
Yes, ma'am. I was.
On July 4th, we're on.
That's correct. With my handgun.
You weren't the only Secret Service agent present at that rally, were you?
No. We had multiple Secret Service agents, 38 that were stationed in the area.
Some of those agents were stationed on rooftops, weren't they?
That's correct. For protection.
Sir, you understand that Senator Capello, as you mentioned earlier, was shot from a gun to a rooftop, right?
He was shot with a sniper from a rooftop. None of my agents carry sniper rifles.
But if you heard that someone had been on a rooftop with a weapon, you would be interested in investigating, yes?
If that person wasn't a law enforcement officer assigned to me,
It's true that some of those Secret Service agents that were working that day were actually wearing civilian uniforms.
that's true. That's for their safety and the safety of Mr. Capello as well.
So throughout your entire investigation, you only focused on one person of interest.
That's not correct. No.
Sir, is it your testimony that you didn't have one person of interest in this case?
We had multiple suspects, but because we found evidence leading us to Miss Crosby, she became a person of interest. There was no one else that had evidence connected to Miss Crosby.
You told us about some tweets earlier,
That's correct.
and you recognize that confession to again.
Yes, ma'am.
Special Agent, if you could go ahead and flip to Exhibit 12. Sir, this is let me know when you're there. This is the tweet that you were mentioning earlier, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, this tweet, it was made on April 5th, 2022.
That's correct.
You didn't think that this was evidence of motive until after you identified Ms. Crosby.
That's not correct.
Sir, is it your testimony that you thought this was a motive before you even identified Ms. Crosby as a suspect?
No. We had seen this tweet before, but we had to raise the level of predicate threat, which involves planning or actually following the victim question.
Sir, to be clear, at the time you saw this tweet, you did not see this as motive for Ms. Crosby to commit a crime.
No.
All right, well, let's talk about some of the other evidence. You told us that you found a bullet. Is that right?
That's correct. On the rooftop of the Cincinnati Hotel.
I want to be very clear about what this bullet tells us. It doesn't have any DNA, correct?
No,
Doesn't have any fingerprints on it, correct?
no,
So you certainly can't tell us that Miss Crosby touched them.
no,
But you also showed us that there was a cigarette butt that was found on that, correct?
that's correct.
And that it had Miss Crosby's DNA on it.
Right, it was found 5 feet away from that bullet. It had Miss Crosby's DNA, her fingerprints, and gunshots, which meant it was within 5 feet of the time.
Be clear about what that testing is. That testing tells us that that cigarette was 5 feet within where the gun was, correct?
That's correct.
And that cigarette butt doesn't tell us that Miss Crosby was within 5 feet, correct?
No,
That cigarette butt doesn't tell us when Miss Crosby touched that cigarette butt, correct?
no, just that she touched it sometime before we found it.
You were present for the FBI questioning of Miss Crosby. Yes.
I was.
You know, she said she smoked on that rooftop on July 3rd.
Initially, she said she had never been to the rooftop hall, but after we told her we found her fingerprints on the cigarette butt, she admitted that she had been on the rooftop the day before the attack.
So that cigarette butt certainly doesn't tell us that Miss Crosby was on that rooftop on July 3rd.
No, it just says she was on the rooftop at some point in time before we found it, like I mentioned.
Sir, it's your belief that Miss Crosby took a sniper rifle and shot the senator.
That's what the evidence points to. Yes,
Did you find that sniper rifle?
no ma'am. We're only able to recover a piece of the rifle that had been discarded at a restaurant. Miss Crosby had eaten it the same day.
You didn't find any fingerprints on that trigger guard, did you?
No ma'am.
You didn't find any DNA on that trigger guard, did you?
No,
And you never found the full rifle, did you?
no, just that piece that was found at a restaurant that we did confirm Miss Crosby ate it that same day shortly after the attack.
Bringing it back to my question, sir, you never found the hurt weapon throughout your entire investigation.
An entire sniper rifle? No, just the trigger, like I mentioned.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor.
No, Your Honor, the witness stepped down when you published exhibits 3 and 12. And then received the 5 that. Yes. No, objection, Your Honor. So that is. No, Your Honor, not properly. That's my first witness. Yes, Your Honor, the defense was late. Mentioned that you worked in the military, having to get started in the military. I think what was the nice was it how many field lines? Tell us what you did while you were in the military. And we understand why you're here in the court today. And I want to get right. Did you kill Thomas Keller on July 2022? What's honestly what is it? Funny what? How did you feel about Senator Harper? I'll be the first to tell you, I do like that extremely smart, a lot of issues. From the military, used to speak out what I stand for, for our country, for militant stand. Like, President, have you been here throughout the duration of this trial? Here was a special agent talk about some tweets that you made about Senator Trump. I want to take a look at this. Stand up, tweets at 12. And can you tell us what this tweet is about? This is my Twitter. It's about Hello. Having a rally information about his campaign. This tweet, are you threatening to kill Thomas Hello? I don't know what else to tell you. I didn't like the guys of politics. Right, well, I want to move to the events of July of 2022. Did you go to Philadelphia during that time? Can you tell us when you got there? You got there on what day was the rally? Ma'am, did you hear the special agent testify that there was a cigarette butt and your DNA found on your hotel room? You on that report? Smoke that cigarette. Lie. Well, the FBI, can you smoke that cigarette?
Judge Schroeder, at this time, to give proper care, driving up to 608. Your Honor, specifically, Rule 608 notes a character for truthfulness or non-truthfulness. But under 608A, it requires that a witness's credibility and be attacked before it's really due diligence. For Ms. Johnson, for this line of question, allow the witness to explain away why she lied before it's been attacked by the prosecution counsel is made admissible under 608A. Rather than being afterwards, and then she reveals afterwards. Sponsor.
Your Honor, the exact question that I asked the witness wasn't whether or not or why she lied to the FBI. I asked this witness whether or not she spoke on that responsible lie. This witness is explaining that she initially didn't say that she was told the FBI that she spoke on the lie, but that she did in fact spoke on the lie. I'm not asking this why she did or did not lie to the FBI, just clarifying the story as to when that actually found out.
Sponsor. The 608 does require the defendant to ask a specific question. The witness's answer was rehabilitated for all the character of truthfulness. It's true under 608A. I have to not the agent to release the fact that she initially said she was not. So,
So, ma'am, did you tell the FBI to smoke that cigarette when you left her? I want to be perfectly clear for the members of the jury here. Did you ever go on your hotel's rooftop when you left? No. All right, well, if you were on the rooftop on July 4th, I want to talk about it. Can you tell us how July 4th started out for you?
shower.
What time would you say you got to travel? Crosby, except it must have been after I got there at 10 p.m. and before the shooting around 1:45. I am 100% sure I saw Crosby at a fellow rally on July 4th, 2000. And how long did you stay at that rally? 25 minutes. I waited for the fellow to come out. Then watched his picture. And I want to talk about where specifically at the time Senator College. You recognize the map of the area where the rally was after show? And if you could go ahead and move to exhibit 3. Recognize it. Here to be fair and accurate as we last month. Your Honor, at this time, the investment committee is. Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. Permission to call the third. So, go ahead and hold up that map for the members of the church. Can you point to us on this map exactly where you were at the time Senator College? It was about Raleigh. Ma'am, were you anywhere within that purple circle on that map? Anywhere near the Sinesta Hotel in the Senator College shop? Okay. All right, can you tell us what you did after the Senator shop? I was shaken. I mean, obviously, I'm from the military. It's been seconds. I've seen something that ran away from that. Okay. Walked around Philadelphia. What happened after you went back to the top? Ma'am, did you book the flight to go back home on the day of your rally? Ms. Crosby, I want you to talk a little bit about that FBI act. First, did you bring any weapons with you to Philadelphia? So, did you have a sniper rifle with you? Don't have a sniper. Do you own a sniper rifle? Ma'am, did the FBI ever ask you what clothes you were wearing? Ms. Crosby, did you commit the crime the government is supposed to do? Very good crime. Thank you, Robert. Yes, Robert. Ms. Crosby, I know we've already talked about this a little bit, but it's true that you're no stranger to guns, right, ma'am? Ma'am, you didn't just work in the military, you were a sniper, weren't you? You weren't just any sniper, right? You were a pretty good one. And ma'am, you won 4 separate awards as a sniper, didn't you? Yeah. Ma'am, you held the record for the U.S. Armed Services longest bullseye, didn't you? 1,500 yards, wasn't it? Ms. Crosby, throughout your involvement in this case, you've learned a little bit about the facts of the assassination of Senator Aleyna. What have been? Ma'am, in your opinion, no ordinary person could have made that shot. Ma'am, we learned that that shot was about 600 yards. But correct me if I'm wrong. When you were in the Army, you regularly made shots of 900 yards. Yes, done. Ma'am, speaking of distance, let's not talk about where you were leading up to July 4th, 2022. Ms. Crosby, it's true that the Philadelphia campaign stop wasn't the first rally that you attended for talking about this, right?
You went to 3 events prior, didn't you? Like, I said, that's like, you went to protest 2 times in Massachusetts and in Rhode Island, didn't you? But on July 4th, 2022, you arrived here, Philadelphia. Like you told us, you checked into the Sonesta Hotel. Crosby, you heard Special Agent Divya explain the forensics indicated that that was the hotel the shot was fired from. And you also heard a lot about this cigarette butt, didn't you? And you know that the FBI found 4 fingerprints, your DNA, on this cigarette butt. Yeah. Well, when you were confronted with that evidence, you said, that doesn't prove anything, right? You told the FBI you never went up to that room, did you? Man, that was a lie. You told the FBI you didn't smoke this cigarette. So maybe that was a lie. Just to be clear, Mr. Crosby, you did, in fact, go up to the rooftop of the Sonesta Hotel yesterday. Yeah. Now, let's talk about why. When you turn to Exhibit 12 of that Exhibit 5 in front of you, and that's the tweet that you posted on April 5th of 2022. Now, that same day, you booked a hotel reservation right here in Philadelphia, didn't you? Exactly, ma'am, that same day, April 5th, 2022, that's when Tom Capello posted his campaign schedule for the summer. So you acted immediately, you booked that hotel. Came to this hotel on July 3rd, 2022. And you returned the next day. This is a tweet you posted that morning, isn't it? You posted this tweet at 7:01 a.m. on July 4th, 2022. Do those appear to be fair and accurate copies of your works? Prosecution offers give you the first.
Yes, Your Honor, Your Honor, hearing that this is evidence, it makes no patent before unless it's not.
The Foxroom, Your Honor, Exhibit 12, the first tweet of the defendant explains this is the time of impeachment. And then on the day of Senator Capello's death, she tweeted, quote, "It's impeachment day. Relevant to the American law to hold the value of this document. The defendant announced today is the day to prepare for the planet is the mess." Absolutely. And turn back to the all main role. Told your followers, this is the time for patriots, yes? Yeah. And on July 4th, 2022, the day Senator Tom Capello was killed, he said, it's Patriot Day. Didn't you? Thank you, Ms. Crosby. Nothing further.
No redirect, Your Honor, to patent this document.
Your Honor, permission to publish Exhibit 13, the jury.
Oh, yes, Your Honor. That's very important. No, Your Honor, before you rest our case, Chief, if I could publish it.
No, Your Honor.
Yes. That's our case.
Yes, Your Honor, if I could say it, let's.
May I proceed?
It's young members of the jury, may it please the court. This was a killer who couldn't. Throughout this trial, you learned bits and pieces about what happened on July 4th, 2020. I want to pull them all together and walk you through the exact sequence of events leading up to when this defendant took a shot that she couldn't. Because you heard. And I ask you to keep those three questions in the back of your head to understand exactly why it was this defendant and this defendant alone who committed this crime. Because first, we ask you to think about what this defendant knew about this, about violence. You see, Special Agent Divya and the defendant herself both explained her military. You heard that she had that she held the record for the longest shots, that she could consistently fire shots from 900 yards away. You go back to deliberate, you'll see in the forensics report that this shot was only 600 yards. Just like the defendant told you, no ordinary sniper could make that shot, but she was no ordinary sniper. She was an expert. This defendant had everything she needed to take that shot. And she couldn't miss if she wanted, because she had regularly shot double that distance. Question, where was the defendant? Because we have to, of course, be able to place her at the scene. And that's exactly what we did, because we showed you Exhibit 3, which marks that the Sonesta Hotel was the only location proven by the forensics where the shot had been taken. We showed you that this defendant was at the Sonesta Hotel on July 3rd and July 4th, 2022, under an alias. She booked this reservation months in advance as soon as she learned that victim's confused. As soon as she tweeted out, see, she specifically asked, near the emergency stairway. Proved exactly how we know the defendant wasn't just at the hotel, but that she was on the rooftop. Because we showed you the bullet make she used to fire the gun and the proof that she was there. Because you see, we know that this cigarette had to be smoked before the gun was fired. Because the forensic evidence showed that there was gunshot residue involved. She had to smoke the cigarettes and then take the shot. And I want you to think back specifically to Agent Divya's description of where the cigarette was found. It wasn't found on the ground. It wasn't found littered or swept away. It was found on the ledge. She insists, no, I smoked this cigarette on July 3rd of 2022. But she's already admitted that she lied, that she told the FBI she never smokes. She never went to the rooftop members of the jury. She's already practiced how to lie about this case. There's no reason to believe she isn't lying today. When she was confronted with the DNA and fingerprints, she said, that doesn't prove anything. Members of the jury, you know that it does. You know that it proves that she was on the roof shortly before. We know why this defendant had every reason. Why she had every reason to want that senator dead. Thomas argument is a threat to every person in this country. As long as he is alive, none of us are safe. This is a time for retreat. She believed when she tweeted, "It's Patriots Day, it was time to carry out her plan." She went up to that. She aimed that sniper rifle and she fired it into Senator Thomas Capello's head and killed him. She explained what she had. We went to the airport. Immediately flew across the country. After she took the shot that she couldn't. This young just asked, she's gonna come up here before you and she's gonna tell you, well, it could have been a Secret Service. We don't know definitively that the person who hated the victim, who had military sniper practice, and who openly and violently threatened this victim, well, she's not definitively the person who committed this crime because the Secret Service agents, they were carrying guns. Members of the jury, the Secret Service is there to protect presidential candidates. Ms. Young did not present a shred of evidence that any of those Secret Service agents had a sniper rifle, that any of them had anything against their protectee, or that any of them were linked to a single piece of forensic evidence. The only person that the evidence ties back to over and over and over again is the defendant. It's because she took a shot that she couldn't. Why? Prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that she killed Senator Thomas Capello, intention and malice of forethought, and we ask that you find her guilty. Thank you.
The government's case. Heard from the government's own witness. They didn't see a motive in Miss Crosby until they wanted it to be. They didn't identify her as a suspect until they wanted her to be, and they didn't even consider the possibility. They wanted law. It doesn't care about what the government wants. It cares about what the government wants. Need evidence. What they need is proof beyond reason. But for them to bring guesses, members of the jury, they needed to bring you proof that left room for no other reasonable explanation. See, the government had more suspects, they just weren't. They set their eyes on Miss Crosby and they didn't. Members of the jury, how must it feel to be Miss Crosby in this room? She put her life on the line for this country for years, only for it to threaten to take away hers. Law has what's called a presumption of innocence, and I mentioned at the beginning of this. Means